Hey everybody, it's JacqBean coming back with another review. Today we're going to be reviewing The Walking Dead, episode 22. The episode is called Faith. Much of this episode is going to be covering Alexandria and the group that has met up there and that has been put in prison there, as well as Eugene's day in court. So without further ado, let's get to reviewing. Judith started off the show this week talking about how they have kind of gotten through all the different attempts at death. They had met death so many times, but they were able to get through, and that her dad, that Rick, wanted Faith to be greater than wrath, which is of course why he never killed Negan. A lot of the scenery during this time was showing, what happened to Glenn, Abraham, and them being in these situations, and showing Negan, showing him as that evil guy, and also in warm situations, although this one looks like he was in bed with Alpha, but I think that it's kind of pointed towards Annie. So this episode starts out with our Alexandria folks working hard, slaving away in the woods. You'll see, Negan is carrying around one of those beams like you build houses with, and they are carting things away in wheelbarrows. And they are also looking at the position, how many guards are there and what positions they're in. They are definitely trying to put a plan together for escape. That becomes clear once Magna goes over to let Negan know that where the positioning of the guards were and how many there were, and he pulls up a piece of paper and starts to kind of chart out where people are. As Ezekiel came over to talk to Negan is not paying him any attention because he turned around, but he saw that they had Annie doing the work that she was doing, and he just walked up to the guard and he was like, could you, I'll take some extra shifts. Let me do some extra work. My wife, she's pregnant. And the guard was not having not any part of him. He was just like saying, you're a prisoner, you're nobody, you don't speak to me, just get your work done. And he ended up getting into a fight with one of the other guards. And of course, Negan wasn't going to take much of that, so he started hitting them back. And they threw him down and was kicking them in the stomach. And of course, Annie see them doing that to Negan. She comes running up to try to protect him. And they grab her and she start punching people in the face herself. She's really pretty badass. And then they just kind of grabbed her around and took her away. But you'll see up at the top a guy looking down over them. And this was the guy that I talked about in a promo that we didn't know what he was. It turns out that he is the warden of the Alexandria prison for exiles. At one point when Ezekiel and Princess were doing their hard labor, she saw a guy, I think his name was Tyler Davis, and she pointed him out to Ezekiel, and he was like, maybe we can get some help from him. And Ezekiel was like, isn't he the one that, that took Max hostage? And Princess was like, yeah, I didn't say I liked him. I just think that he had balls and he's gutsy, and this is the kind of person that we should ask for help. If he is like us, then he'll want to help. So then we go to a scene where they are eating their lunch, or Tyler is eating his lunch. All of a sudden, Negan and Zeke come walking in, and they sit with him, and they're like, we love how you stood up to Pamela. We know that you don't want to be here. And, maybe we can, if you hook up with us, then we can take the guards out and try to get out of here. Tyler wasn't having no parts of that. He's like, don't you think we've tried that before? We want to live. And if you try to go against them, you're going to die. At that point, the guards came in for Negan. They were like, come with us. And Negan was saying he's not coming nowhere until they let him know where his wife is, because he didn't know where they took her. And then they dragged his butt up out of that chair, and I'm sure he is going to go to the warden's office. So they bring Negan to the warden's office, and when the guard brings him in, I believe they call him 197. When they bring him in, the warden looks at him and is like, your transfer has been denied. And this guy is like, my brother is really sick. He just wanted to be closer to where his family was. And he was like, nope, you should have came to me and not went around me to ask for a transfer. So not only are we not going to give you the transfer, but we're also going to extend your stay here another 6 months. And he was looking so upset, or just really can't understand, this man's assholery. But you can see Negan's face. He's thinking that, hey, maybe we can get this guy on my side and have someone from the inside. He showed it with his face, even though he didn't say it as well. So once that guard walks out of the room, this warden comes up to Negan. He has the copy of the map that he drew, and he's like, I found this outside. Negan's like, well, I don't know what it is. It don't belong to me. He's like saying that he believes that there's a threat within the midst, and that it's part of Negan's group. And Negan's like, I don't have no group. He said, besides his wife, everybody in that group hates him. He's like, but you can find out. And Negan's like, no, I can't. And he said, well, I think if you want to see that wife of yours, then you will find out. So next we see Negan going in to see Annie. She's in a guarded room. Looks like she's in a hospital bed, but she's sleeping. And Negan kind of wakes her up and, it's just kind of wants to know how she's doing. She wants to know how he's doing. We're going to get out of here. And he's like, yes, we are going to get out of here. She said, but I think she wanted to caution him. I don't want you to do it with any kind of crazy risk. I want to meet this baby, and I want you to meet the baby. Negan doesn't want her to worry about it. He said he's going to handle it. And I think that she's okay with that, but she just also wanted him to not be too risky. It was a really sweet moment, and you can tell that Negan really cares for his family and wants everything to be okay. We shift to Negan outside doing some shoveling, and Zeke comes over and says, what happened with the warden? And, Negan was giving him some evasive answers, like, oh, he gave me the train duty. And Ezekiel is like, don't go rogue. Don't just go running off half-cocked on your own. We really needed that map. You lost us something that we really needed. And Negan was like, I don't want to hear this anymore. And Zeke got really, really mad. On the inside, he never forgave him for what happened to the kingdom and the people that lived there. But you saw in this scene that it was specifically what happened to Benjamin, because for Ezekiel, Benjamin was his family, and he can never get that back. He told Negan that when they kind of make this right, that he actually doesn't deserve a brand new life, and he doesn't deserve to be a father. So I believe that in Negan's mind, as probably I would think too, that he's thinking that Ezekiel is going to pass some judgment on him. And Negan looked very threatened by it, and he just looked at Ezekiel and said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to fix this for my kid. And he walked away. And the next scene, you see him walking into the room with the warden. The warden is looking for that name. It's like, do you have a name for me? And then you get that little smile that Negan always gives you when you think that he's up to no good. So I believe that Negan told the warden that he would find out the name of the person just so that he could see his wife. And at this point, I'm thinking that Ezekiel may have pissed him off enough to say it was Ezekiel. So during the night, when people were sleeping, the army came in all the guards came in and they started making people like, outside, get up, get outside. And they grabbed Ezekiel and they had him by both sides. So they had one guard on one side and one guard on the other side, and they're manhandling and getting them out of. It was pretty intense. They're dragging Ezekiel out to in front of the windmill, and then a big light comes on. And I'm sitting there like holding my breath and like, don't let him die like this. You know, I'm thinking that Negan gave Zeke's name to the warden. The warden stands in front of Ezekiel and he says, there's a traitor in our midst. Someone that thinks they are above the law. And it's looking, and the camera's looking directly at Zeke. And, you know, my heart stopped for a couple of seconds there. But it was Negan that he chose to bring up and said that Negan was responsible for kind of trying to bring about a rebellion. So Negan never gave up anybody. But what is he doing? Why does he want to do this? And so the warden decides that it'll only be Negan. He'll be punished, but he wanted everybody to come out there so that he could see what would happen if they tried to rebel. And everybody is just looking horrified, especially Annie. How can you stand there and have to see that? Annie is able to get through the guards, and she's like, please don't do this to him. And they were able to stop her and hold her back. And then the guards got into place to shoot Negan, who was just standing there. He was like, do this to me and it's done, I think. But maybe he knows that people like Ezekiel and the others, even if they don't really like him, that they wouldn't see this kind of injustice happen. But then the warden started to thinking. It's always a mess when they start thinking, isn't it? He brought Annie up there, said, there are no martyrs here. I'm not going to just kill you and let it be over with. Guess what? I'm going to bring your wife here too. So they brought Annie up next to him and made her get on his knees. And of course, Negan freaked out then. He was like, no. Look, that wasn't the deal. The deal was that it was me and it's not her. So he's literally begging that they don't shoot her too. Negan tried to really talk to that guard, 197, that they wouldn't let him go home or go close to home so he could be with his sick brother. He's saying, you have a family. Please don't do this. Please don't hurt my family. Don't kill my family. And you could tell that he was getting to him. He understood it. And the warden just kept screaming, no, you can't do it now. Do it now. And then Zeke, Magna, Princess, Kelly, and even Tyler Davis, they all kind of walked up front and not made it like a real barricade, but they stood in front and around Negan and Annie, just like saying, stop, just don't do this. Even Negan was like, what are you doing? He was like, I don't know. But, he got to do something. He can't sit there and let that happen. Guess he's the one man that wants to make a change. So even the things that Eugene was talking about in that court is portrayed by Negan being the one man to take the brunt of the whole mess in order for his wife and everybody to be safe, and for Ezekiel, who actually is the one man that's going to get up and say, listen, this is not what we want to do. And being that he is Ezekiel, others came to join him to say, this is not what we want to do. But the warden is stubborn. He was just going to kill them all. And when the guards went up to point their rifles at them, the guard, that 197, the guy that I think understood, you could see in his face that he felt like, I don't want to kill the pregnant lady. If we're going to kill the dude, then let's do that. Let's not kill the pregnant lady. But he actually turned around as the guards pointed towards Ezekiel, because you couldn't see him. He was in front of Negan and Annie. He turned to shoot the warden. There was a guard that got in the way, so the warden was able to move away, and he grabbed Kelly and held the gun to her head, trying to find his way to get out. But guess who he walked back into? Daryl's arrow. The warden went down, and Connie and Kelly and Daryl were able to reunite. and she hugged her sister because she was glad to see her, and that was a pretty shitty situation to be in. Daryl and Carol were outside of Alexandria. They were looking into Alexandria with binoculars and just kind of looked at themselves. So I think from their standpoint, it looks really bad, but we can't see what they're looking at. They meet up with Maggie and the rest of the group just to let them know that it looks really bad. He doesn't think that they're going to make it. They see everyone, but only adults. They don't see any of the children. And of course, Maggie and Rosita are completely worried because their children are in there. And Daryl says that I think I have a way we could get in. We could use the sewers. They've always used the sewers. Every time I think about the sewers, I think about Carl, though, and it makes me sad. So Daryl and Connie are going to go down through the sewers. Daryl says that she knows a way to get into one of the houses, and Maggie is going to go with her. Rosita definitely wanted to go because Coco's down there, but she was told that her and Gabriel are more of their sharpshooters and that they should stay. So she was just like, if it's more than a night, I'm going in. So her and Gabriel stayed put, and everybody else went off to find their way into Alexandria. Daryl and Connie get themselves down into the sewers. And Connie's a little concerned if the plan is going to work. But Daryl was like, we're good. At that point, they get a call from Carol on the walkie-talkie saying that her and Maggie made it to where they were going to be. We haven't got to see where that is just yet. But Daryl let them know that he and Connie were okay too. It turns to Maggie and Carol getting inside Alexandria and getting to the house. I think it was the house that Rick and Michonne and those guys used to live in at one time, but you never know because I guess I've not seen too many different houses as you kind of went through Alexandria. But they got in there and it was inundated with all kinds of guards walking up and down, and they do walk in all of that costume wear all day long. And it looks like they never seem to take it off, but they were walking through and they did have to fight one, and they just kind of knocked them out and dragged them out of there. So we see Maggie and Carol sitting in the room. You can hear the guards kind of walking back and forth, and they are stuck in the room with the guard that they cold cocked. I don't think he was dead. He didn't seem like it, but they had just cold cocked him and he was out. And then the guards were called away. So it was kind of clear for Maggie and for Carol. Maggie's like, I keep hearing him, Herschel. And she said, she's going on about how, maybe I shouldn't have brought him in this world, knowing, what it is. It actually gave me remnants of Lori. Remember in season 2, when she wasn't sure that she should have a baby because the world was so crazy with walkers that it wasn't even a good world to have Carl kind of growing up in and to bring a baby in. You remember that? And Carol was like, you miss people. I miss Henry and Sophia. And because you have them and you love them, you make the world a better place. You try to make the world a better place for them. And of course, this gives me remnants of Rick, because that's all he wanted to do. Everything was about Carl being okay, about Carl surviving in this world. Carol told her that we were going to find him. And then they hear this noise. The noise that Maggie and Carol heard was Herschel. He was saying, help, help. They got to a door where a guard was holding him. Maggie kicked that door in, and Carol shot that guard, and mom and son were reunited. We were very happy. Rosita walked in, and she just wanted to know where Coco was, but Coco wasn't with Herschel, and Herschel said that he didn't know where she was. So Rosita, face turned even more red, and she was out of there. She's looking for her daughter. So after Rosita stormed off, when they couldn't tell her where Coco was, she went outside. And during this time, because they had stabbed the warden in the back, he was just laying there. They dragged him into the open or into the front of the light, and Negan was about to let him have it with both barrels, but Gabe and Rosita came there and she said, "Don't kill him." She asked him where her daughter was, and asked him very angry. She is very distressed at this point, and he wouldn't tell her. So one of the guards that got shot had turned, and so she took him and put him over the warden's face and it's like, "You tell me where my daughter is or, you're gonna die." And in the end, though, it went through a few iterations of "tell me where she is" kind of thing. And he didn't. He told her she was gonna lose everything. Well, he said, "You will all lose everything." And she dropped that walker right on him. And then he was screaming and everybody was looking. You would have thought it was New Year's Eve and he was the ball that dropped down in New York City. It was kind of gross, but apropos, I might add. And then she kind of walked away. We have Aaron and the group going to Oceanside. They were walking through the woods and coming across all kinds of walkers and killing them. And all of a sudden, they start to hear people. And they knew it wasn't walkers. So Aaron just kind of walked up and said, "Whoever you are, come out now. Come out now." And it happens to be Luke and Jules from Oceanside. And they're happy to see him. They have a warm welcome, hug, and just glad to see each other and being okay. And then they let them know, "Well, we're going to Oceanside to hand out supplies." And Luke said, "There is no Oceanside. The Commonwealth Army actually came there and took over." Luke and Jules were able to get away, but they said that they were being tracked, and if they found them, they would be killed. So whatever deal Aaron believed they had made wasn't the case anymore. They were taking over those communities. So they started to leave. I'm sure that they're going to go back to Alexandria and will be in for another rude awakening, but it definitely looks like our folks are going to all meet up in Alexandria for the epic ending. So we start to learn a little bit more about what happened at Oceanside from Luke and Jules, who were hiding when Hornsby and his men invaded the community. And they were told by Rachel that they needed to go. They didn't want to leave. They wanted to be there with them. And she's like, Rachel's like, "You need to go and find, our Alexandria communities and let them know what is going on." And they are really feeling guilty that they left, because when they got back, or they never saw any of them again, not Rachel, not even any of the people that were in the community. But, they found Aaron and those guys, and Aaron let them know that everybody else they were going to meet, they left behind them, but they were going to meet in Alexandria. And, Luke wanted to know, is that my people too? Is that Magna and Yumiko and everybody? And they like, everybody, because they just left a little bit after us. So I think that we'll see them again as they meet up together, but they're definitely going to be in for a very rude awakening when they go walking into Alexandria like it's the way that it used to be. And then they started to hear cars coming, driving up, and they were thinking that it was the army coming, trying to locate actually Luke and Jules. And Lydia just got this look on her face, because when she turned to the side, she saw a bunch of walkers. So what she started thinking. You know what it was, even without me saying anything. She said, "Let's use the whisperer thing, let's melt in with the walkers and try to get out of here, to try to be invisible so that the guards wouldn't see them." So that's what they did. They melted into the walkers and started moving with them. But the guards was thinking that they might have done that too, so they started shining their lights on the herd. And of course, as they see a light, then their bodies change and start moving. But they kept to the plan. They kept kind of moving with them, and the troopers didn't exactly see them. And then something strange happened. It looks like someone dropped a knife. Now, I don't know if it was one of our folks, but it had to be, right? Because they're probably the only ones that would have a knife. But the really weird thing is that someone or something picked it up, and it looked like it was a walker. So, what's up with that? We are in the courtroom, and we see Pamela sitting up there telling her side of the story. Oh, such a sob story. I'm the grieving mom. This happened to my son. You have to pay. And while I do think that she has some feelings about her son, their relationship was very much complicated. I think more than anything, she wants to see Kimiko lose, and she wants to see Eugene get found guilty. And the judge is not giving Kimiko any help. She's not being objective. She's taking all this little cry and heartfelt information coming from Pamela, and she's kind of going with it. So every time Kimiko would object to something, she'll deny. Eugene sees that it's going to be a difficult fight. He can tell that the judge is not going to give him any kind of help, and he says that to Kimiko. She's not going to believe us. And Kimiko's strategy is that let's not worry about the judge. Let's try to get the people, the folks that are standing around in the upstairs aren't able really to sit inside the court. We have to get them on our side. Kimiko started her round of questioning, and it was focused on the lottery and saying, was this a lie? Your son said this was a lie. And in the back, you could see the people groaning because she's like, it gives people opportunity, but they know that it's not really giving them an opportunity. They saw that Sebastian said that it was a bunch of lies. But then Pamela turns on that and says it wasn't her son's voice, that someone altered the tape. And of course, she said it was Eugene. So Eugene is sitting in his jail cell, kind of looking out the window. He has like this look on his face because in the previous scene when Kimiko said, it's not the judge and those people that you need to worry about, it's the people, that are against Pamela as well. And they were on Eugene's side. They were out there saying, Eugene's innocent, free Eugene. And he's thinking that they made it. They really convinced those folks that he was innocent. And then, of course, Kimiko then says, well, I don't know, if those guards are there and they're all on Pamela's side, towing the line. If we can't get anybody like that on our side, then I don't know. I don't know. I don't think we can win. It might be too late. And so Eugene got very solemn. He was just like, maybe I need to come to grips with the fact that I'm going to be found guilty. And when the guards come to take me to my death, I just have to kind of know that that's going to happen. And then he just got so sad, solemn, and he was crying. He was holding Max's hand. And Kimiko then thought maybe if Mercer would get on the stand and just talk about how corrupt Pamela is, that maybe that is their way to be able to help Eugene. Ask Max if she could talk to him. She said that she can't even get close to him because his people aren't letting him see her. And I think this is another tactic that Pamela uses to keep Mercer in check. He really cares what happens to Max, and she doesn't want anybody near him that might be able to change his mind or make him change his flavor of taking care of the people in this community. So Kimiko decides that she's going to give it a shot. And Kimiko does exactly what she said she'd do. She goes to Mercer's office and is sitting there when he gets back. She wants him to do the right thing. She wants him to get on the stand and talk about how corrupt Pamela is. If he doesn't do that, then Eugene will be killed. And even the people, they took her people. They took them. She doesn't know where they had gone, that they could be killed as well. She just wants him to stand up because he's a pillar in that community and people trust what he says, and that could be helpful to Eugene. Mercer believes that it's not going to make a difference anyway, but Kimiko tells him that it can. He actually sends her on his way. He's like, nope, there's nothing I can do. I cannot help you. And she leaves his office, but you can see the face. You can see his face when she left the room. You know, there's those gears were turning. Let's see what he'll do. So we come back to the court, and it's time for Kimiko to close her case. You know, she looks around to Mercer to see if she can get him to step up, but he wouldn't. But Eugene wanted to stand up and say some words in his own defense. And it was really a great speech. I can only talk about it, as much of it as I can remember, but it's a great speech to see. But he talked about the fact that he probably should have never made it from the first day, but because of the help of friends, that he was able to live. He was able to survive. And also that he wasn't always a good person. You know, he got in with the wrong crowd, with the Negans, and looked at order over the lives of other people. And he had blood on his own hands, because even though he didn't swing the bat, he was still culpable because he knew what was happening and he never said anything. This was information that I think he was speaking to Mercer, just trying to let him know that one man can make a change if he chooses to do something about it. And he was also speaking to the people of the Commonwealth, saying, you know, whatever happens to me is not going to stop you from being able to fight for your rights. You know, don't let it put you in the corner and not say anything while all these things are happening around you. And at that point, the judge ruled that Eugene was guilty. And at the end, the last scene of the episode was the guards walking Eugene into the jail, the prison, I believe. He had 2 guards holding each of his arms, and they had a sack over his head. As they're walking him around the different corners of that building, they walk right into Mercer, and then they take off the sack. So Mercer is eye to eye with Eugene. They take off his handcuffs, and then Mercer made my heart sing, because he looked dead at Eugene and said, "Time to fuck shit up." And that's how it ended. So I can't wait to see how they do that. I really enjoyed this episode, and I'm looking forward to see what Mercer is going to do, because from an Alexandria standpoint, it looks like they have taken over now, and the fight is going to have to come there to them. So when Aaron and those guys get back, then at least the folks from Alexandria will be in charge. However, I am concerned about Rosita, because she's rightfully out of her mind. She just wants to make sure that Coco is okay. But she's being hasty. And, you know, being hasty can lead to mistakes, and mistakes get you killed. And I don't want to see that for that character. And what about if that was a walker that picked up that knife? Now, you know, the Walking Dead film's so dark, but I think the imagery was clear, to me anyway, that it wasn't a human that picked that up. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you're enjoying the content, please subscribe and like the video, and I look forward to seeing everybody next time.